Okay, we saw earlier that the moon is spiraling away from the Earth because of the tides that the moon, creates on the Earth. And the moon is moving away about an inch a year, so it's a considerable amount. Um, the next thing to talk about is what else has the moon done for us, or are the consequences of our having a moon? Well, one thing, it turns out that the Earth's axis, if this is the rotation axis of the Earth and this is the orbit around the sun, the Earth's axis is tilted like this, about 23 degrees, and the Earth is going around the sun like this, and this tilt is what gives us the seasons. And there's some work that suggests that if the moon didn't exist, that tilt would be changing and the seasons would be changed. Sometimes we'd have serious seasons like we do now. Sometimes when the Earth is like this, we'd have no seasons at all. So one thing that the moon apparently is doing is stabilizing the Earth's tilt so the seasons remain pretty much the same. The second thing, as you saw earlier, is that as the Earth gives energy to the moon is slowing the Earth's rotation, and it has slowed it quite a bit. We don't know exactly how much the Earth was spinning when it first formed, but it may have been, for example, 3 times faster. And in that case, the day would have been 8 hours long rather than 24 hours long. So imagine trying to get everything done in an 8-hour day that you have to do in a 24-hour day. Not so good. Another thing that the moon has done by changing the Earth's rotation rate is it sets the amount of time that our bodies have to synchronize with the day, which is to say, our bodies have what's called a biological clock that synchronizes with the 24-hour cycle of the day, and that synchronization was caused by the moon slowing the Earth down from an 8-hour day to a 24-hour day. So our biological clock rate is based in part on the effect of the moon. Because the Earth is not spinning as fast as it used to, the weather has changed. The faster it spins, the stronger the winds are likely to have been. And therefore, the weather we have today is much more mild and friendly than it would have been if the moon had never existed. Of course, the moon goes through a cycle of phases, and when it is bright at night, when the moon is near full, then animals that have evolved can function at night. If the moon had never existed, animals that would function at night using moonlight, they would never have evolved in the first place. And another great thing for the moon is that we humans, our first major step into space was to go to the moon. It would have been virtually impossible, it would have been impossible for humans to go to Mars, say, back in the 1960s and 70s when we first went to the moon, because it's too far away and Mars has too much gravity. We didn't have the technology, but we did have the technology to go to the moon, which was a very exciting thing. So what would happen if the moon had never existed? Among other things, for example, the day would be much longer, depending on how fast it was spinning back then. It might be a 6-hour or 8-hour day today, and that would be something quite different. We'd have very different weather patterns. We'd have very different seasons, and one of the most intriguing things is that when the moon formed, it was much closer than it is today, and therefore the tides it created on the Earth, moon, Earth, the tides that the moon created were much higher. And those high tides back in the day brought water over the land and back to the oceans very rapidly and very powerfully, and that wore down the young surface of the earth and provided the primordial soup in the oceans in which life formed. So the moon has done an awful lot for us, and if it had never existed, we would not be the same as we are today.